understanding conversations include and engage. Getting individuals involved renews commitments and energy. It takes dialogue. And it takes really successful understanding conversations are dialogues, which means as the one who's proposing the change, I'm actually willing to listen to what they have to say and make modifications in what I'm out to accomplish based on what they're contributing. If I'm not open to that, then all I'm having is essentially announcements about what's going to come, which is more accurately a performance conversation than it is an understanding conversation. So what do people understand? Whatever you propose, people will make their own sense of it. And they're going to do that, and there's nothing you can do about it. People will make their own sense of whatever you propose. So you can't control how they make sense of it. You can put in corrections when you hear what they say, but they will come up with their own interpretations, their own understandings, and make their own sense of it. They'll add their own meaning to whatever you say. And this will have an impact on your proposal because you'll think, exactly as Todd was saying, well, I'm really working to get this thing standardized right down, so there's not much room for that. He's going to say, this is really good. He's going to issue it. He's going to find, oh, I can't believe people could misinterpret it like that. How could they possibly understand that? That's not in there at all. Because they will. That is what happens. With an understanding conversation, people create their own meanings, their own understandings. And you can interact with those understandings, but you can't, they will do that. In an understanding, you say, well, it's an understanding conversation. Yes, I'm having an understanding conversation consistent with this is what I want, when I want it, and why I want it. Why are you having an understanding conversation? Because an understanding conversation is in service of something you're out to accomplish. What is it? So, look, I want to talk to you about getting a man on the moon by the end of the decade and returning him safely. And so I want to have a conversation to see how we might be able to do that. That's saying what I want and then moving into the next conversation. Ask them how this relates to them. You can ask them, so here's my idea. How's it landing on the moon? And you happen to be talking to the Secretary of Health and Human Services at the time. Got nothing to do with us. Okay, so this is not related to you? No, you don't need to participate in this? Oh, I'd like to know what's going on, but no, you don't need me. Okay. Create the plan together. When you got the appropriate people, how are we going to do this? How are we going to land on the man on the moon? We don't have the equipment, we don't have the size of engines, we don't have the materials, we don't have the people, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the money. Oh, that's great. You just told me everything I needed. In a conversation for understanding, criticisms, or what some people call resistance, is really powerful because it'll tell you the conditions you need to satisfy in order to accomplish what you want. We participated, my wife did a relocation in the city of a call bank inside one of the city departments. And when she was working with the director to make that move, she was getting all these explanations as to why you can't do it. You can't do it because you don't have this kind of facility and it doesn't have this kind of wiring and it doesn't have... She wrote all that stuff down on a board and put it up and she said, okay, so if we got this and we got this and we got this and we got this, then that would go. Well, yeah, how'd you know that? And that's what they did. If you listen, if you're willing to listen to all the criticisms rather than arguing with them or rebutting them at the time, oh, that's right, I got it. We don't have a T1 line. Oh, yeah, that would definitely stop us from going in there. Yeah, and you also don't have soundproof in the wall. Oh, yeah, that would be a barrier. Clear up any misunderstandings in dialogue. It's a conversation I just had with Jason. Anything you hear that's off, put in the correction for it. How to engage people. Commit. Doesn't mean you'll be successful, but commit to helping people find a positive meaning in the message. It may be bad news for them. There may be no good news in it for them. But if you commit to that there's good news here, you're willing to work with them to hear the good news. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's there, but it's a commitment that you bring into the conversation. Your goal is to help people fit into the change. I want this to actually work. I'm interested in the change working. I need you to work with me in this. Your flexibility. We talked about this in a couple ways. Stand by your initiative, but be willing to clarify the goal and collaborate on creating the plan. As I talk to you, I really see that it's really more about doing it this way. I got a slight twist on it. I'm willing to change that. And the timeline and the plan and who's going to do what, I'm willing to, all that's fine. Your respect. Remember, everyone is different, so you got to customize your message. You can't give the same message to finance that you give to marketing. Deliver the message. Face-to-face meetings are possible. Todd's comment and the issue that Chris was bringing up with email. Face-to-face are definitely preferable. Yeah, but it takes a lot of time. Yep, it does. Say and repeat as needed. That should be underlined, bolded, highlighted, stars pointing to it. What you want, when you want it, and why it matters. Establish a Q&A format. Now, when people don't ask, when you ask, does anybody have any questions, and they don't say, okay, well, how about this scheduling? Will this scheduling work? What issues do you see with the scheduling? Start probing inside what you're putting together to elicit people's contribution to it. You want to find out what are the issues that they see as an aside. If you have no credibility and trust with people, this will be really hard. Ask for their ideas on who should be involved, where the resources are, and how to do it. Notice we're now into the resource side of the game. In terms of the ingredients, understanding conversations are really high in the resource side of the ingredients, much more so than the other ones. When things get stuck, remind people of the initiative's value, importance, and urgency. So this is, and urgency is a function of the time frame. This is going back to what I want, why I want it, and when I want it. This is why we're having this conversation.
Almost like when you do the understanding conversation, you're also really repeating the initiative.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're absolutely. In fact, the initiative conversation can be repeated in a lot of places. And then give people problems. Ask them for solutions. What needs to be done by whom to accomplish this? So, well, we don't have the materials for landing a man on the moon, building that kind of spacecraft. Oh, okay. Well, who does know anything about that? Well, clearly this department, this agency, the military has that. Begin to identify, have them identify what's required. What's a good schedule for us to do it? I think we can do it by the end of the decade. Is that unrealistic? Well, yeah, it's completely unrealistic. We don't have anything. Oh, well, that's good. Let's do it. It's a sufficient challenge. And then, are there any good measures of success? This is the question that was brought up earlier. How does Smithers or the organization determine that they're successful in what they're implementing? How would we measure this? And it's not necessary that you have the measures. It's that you're willing to have the conversation for how would we measure this? What constitutes the home run? What constitutes the win? It also doesn't mean you accept everything everybody proposes. Bonus. One of the things that comes out of really rich understanding conversations is you learn a lot. You learn a lot. You get new vocabulary, you get new ideas, you get new solutions, things that you haven't thought about before. So understanding conversations are not just, here's what we're doing, do you have any questions? Thank you, we'll see you all next week. Now, common mistakes with understanding conversations. First mistake is assuming people understand and that they'll engage themselves. They won't. Some will, most won't. Okay? So assuming that they understand. Entertaining uncommitted shoulds, coulds, and complaints for too long. Yeah, but that won't work here because, and you now go down that rat hole. Okay? So if you engage in, these become unproductive conversations if you engage in them for too long. You can acknowledge them, you can recognize them, you can say, yes, that's a problem, you can deal with what we should do. One of the things I always tell my students is I should definitely have more hair. Al might have a similar sentence. We definitely should have more hair. You guys should not have all the hair you guys have. Doesn't make any difference. That should is completely irrelevant, and spending a lot of time about the shouldness of that makes absolutely no difference. It just becomes an uncommitted complaint. Thinking that understanding means acceptance, this is key. Think that understanding means acceptance, agreements, or causes people to take action. They don't. In fact, I'm sorry?
You might get the head nod.
Yeah, you get the head nod, and
Doesn't mean anything happens.
how many of you have had a political candidate that the more they talked, the less you liked them because you understood more and more about what they were up to? It's quite possible that the higher the understanding, the more disagreement there exists. So understanding does not mean I accept it. I had a student, it's in the book, I had a student one time come up to me after an exam and she said, Professor Ford, I'd like you to regrade my question. I said, why? She said, well, I think I actually answered your question and I'd appreciate it if you'd regrade it. So I read it and I said, okay, but I don't see any need to change it. And she started getting really upset. And I said, I asked her, was everything okay? And she said, would you please read it again? Because I really do think that I answered your question. So I read it again, and I said, well, and this time I did the good Rogerian kind of stuff and said, here's your answer. And I gave back her answer in a way of explaining this is I really did read it. I didn't just zip over it and gave it back to her. And I see no need to change the grade. And she started crying. And I told her, I said, clearly, there's something you want and I'm not providing. And what is it? She said, I really think I had the right answer. And I said, how? And I think that what I said was correct. And I said, well, how would you know if I agreed with your answer or not? She said, you changed the grade. And I told her I agreed what her answer was, and it was the wrong answer for the question. I wasn't going to change the grade. She didn't like that. So understanding doesn't mean you agree or accept. It means you understand. And I can completely disagree with you, and I don't accept it. But I understand exactly what you're saying. And it doesn't cause people to take action. It might be necessary for people to take action, but it's not sufficient to get them to take action. So it leads us to this no action trap. The assumption, if they know and understand, then they'll take the right action.